All right. Hello and welcome to an episode of Nimsy Live. Today my name is Tucker Johnson and I am your host on this program as we experience together Nimsy Live, where we talk about the latest and the greatest in translation, localization, internationalization, globalization, culturalization, all those shuns and other fun stuff that global companies need to delight their international customers, or at least not to piss them off too much. On this program, we like to invite guests who like to have fun and also have some value to add for our audience of globalization professionals. I'm always eager to provide a platform for those with a good story or a good data set. So let us know if there are people or topics that you would like covered or hosted or featured on this program, and we'll reach out to them for future episodes. If you haven't done so already, make sure to like and subscribe to, well, you haven't seen it yet, so you don't have to like it, but you can subscribe. You can subscribe on LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. We're going live on all the major platforms today, and if you do subscribe, then you're going to get notified when we have new things coming up in the future or new episodes airing. Let's see here. Before we get started here really quickly, I want to talk to you about Multilingual Mercantile. I've been plugging this recently. If you see some of those fun hats that I wear, then they're all available over here on Multilingual Mercantile. That's mercantile.multilingual.com, as well as other stuff. If you'd like to show your support for all the great work that the team over at Multilingual Magazine is doing, then go over and check that out. Also, really quickly, welcome to LinkedIn Live for those of us who are joining on LinkedIn Live. We like to do things here on LinkedIn Live because it's where all of our friends are. Everybody's here already. They have been pushing some updates to the way that they manage LinkedIn events and the way that they push out the content there. The algorithm is not being as kind to us as it used to be, so thank you, everybody who helps by sharing these episodes with your network or sharing them with other people so that they can join in the live stream. Today we have a very exciting show. Today we're talking to Dr. Joan Palmiter Bajorek, founder of Women in Voice, the global organization created to celebrate, amplify, and empower women and diverse people in the technology field. Dr. Joan, welcome.
Great to be here.
Thank you. Really quickly, though, because we need to introduce our last and final guest, which is you, chat, everybody in chat. These episodes, we normally have a very active stream. If you've noticed already, if you use that comment functionality, we'll bring your chats up on stream. If you have any questions or comments that you would like to pose to Joan here or myself, then please just enter those in the chat and we'll get to those as quickly as we can. So with that, I think that's the quickest I've ever gotten through my intro today, Joan, because I'm excited to talk to you. And so let's get right into it. Like I said, welcome. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? Tell us about your organization.
Hey, everybody. Greetings from Seattle. My name is Joan. I'm originally from Portland. I think of myself primarily as a linguist and a researcher, but I'm also these days wearing more and more the CEO hat. I'm the founder and CEO of Women in Voice. Women in Voice, similar to our Women in AI, Women Who Code, colleagues in this space. We are all about community and empowering women and minority genders in voice tech. I have a PhD in the field of voice technology, conversational AI, and as I was leaving my PhD, I saw this huge gap in the market to support women in my field. And in 3 years, we have scaled so fast to 20 chapters in 14 countries. So there's usually when people find us, they're like, yes, I'm in. Where do I sign up?
Exactly.
This is a no-brainer. Talking about inclusion and voice tech. It's a really fun space to be in.
It is a fun space to be in, and I can tell. Last night, you can ask my wife. I was, this is outside of my comfort zone. I'm a localization guy. I'm a translation, localization, globalization guy. But I was trying to inform myself a little bit about voice and conversational AI and stuff like that in preparation for the show. And I noticed there is a lot of content, chief among it, your organization, Women in Voice, that's really pushing for inclusivity, diversity, inclusivity, inclusion out there. And I wanted to start a little bit asking you about that. Why Women in Voice? I'm assuming that there was a need identified or a demand for increased representation or advocacy. Talk to us a little bit about the thought process that went into this.
Yeah, sure. Well, let's see. Back in 2018, it's so interesting because today how I think about it and how I thought about it when I launched it, are slightly different. Today when we think about do we support women and do we support BIPOC folks?
Right.
It's a no-brainer, right? It's 2021.
And BIPOC, for our international folks, BIPOC means
Black, Indigenous, people of color, basically non-white folks.
Non-white folks, not me.
I'm a white woman, right? Exactly. And so sometimes, but when we really think about what we want the world to look like, how we want the world to be, how we show up in the world, we have to actively work to make the world a more inclusive place. So back in 2018, I was finishing my PhD, super passionate about my field. Like if you see all my publications, right, I'm like, okay, this is where tech is going. Super, super excited. But then I started also, interviewing companies, going to huge tech conferences and being like, where are the women?
Right.
where are the people of color? Like, uh-oh. And I remember there's this huge conference I went to. I really respect this conference, but there were like 3,000 people. There were almost no women, no people of color. And I went home and I was like, either I'm complicit in normalizing this or I do something. Like those are the only two options I got on the table. And I just couldn't not do something. And I remember my uncle at the time, he's like, you're finishing your PhD, you're on the job market. Like, is this really a time to like start another thing? Like, come on now.
A nonprofit nonetheless, right?
A nonprofit nonetheless.
You work so hard for that PhD. Do you want to go rake in the bucks or do you want to go change the world?
You're already working nights and weekends. This is a really good plan. You're currently living in your parents' basement until you get that next job. Like, come on now. But I just couldn't not. And I think what happened next is I launched Women Voice on Twitter, our WordPress, basic stuff, and said, like, who wants to join leadership positions, right? Like, 27 people signed up in a few weeks from all around the world.
Wow.
And they were like, yes. And these are people from huge companies. These are not, anyway, but we scaled so fast. And as I mentioned, people from Spain, from the UK, from Brazil, Japan, I mean, wherever there is tech, there are people who want to be working in this space, who see the number of jobs posted. I mean, we are hiring like crazy in this space. And so when people are thinking about, you work on language and localization, the passion people have for languages, for cultures, and also for tech, it's just a really, really good intersection. So I think it's as I mentioned, a really fun place to be in. And people who join our community are just like, yes, duh, let's do it.
Yeah, and you mentioned, so we're talking about people in the space, right? What is this space? Let's define our terms before we get into this. When we say women in voice, what does that mean? Does that mean voice acting? Does that mean voice technology? Does that mean... I'll let you answer.
All of the above. Yeah, we are totally across the stack. We are part of the voice and conversational AI ecosystem. And yeah, but no one knows what I do. Like most of the time when I went to dinner parties before, in the pandemic, before pandemic times, people were like, what is voice? Like, is that even a field? Like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, okay, let's take a step back.
Right.
Like, what are you
we go through the same thing in the localization
well?
industry, right? Because like I said, I'm a localization guy, and it's like I'll never be able to explain to my dear mother what I do for a living.
I've heard my dad across the room at a holiday party, like tell people what he thinks I do. And I'm like, oh, that's what you think I do. Okay. But that's hardly the point. I think, so when we think about from the hardware we use every day, right? This has a mic, this has a speaker. We're thinking about the hardware. We're thinking about all the software, but we think about, I think the traditional thing is thinking about like Google Assistant, right? Amazon Alexa devices and kind of these black boxes. But when we think about the future of what conversational AI is, almost all of our devices, mics, are being added to all of our IoT.
Yeah.
I mean, I keep hearing all these stories about kids walking up to screens and asking them to do things because they assume it's going to respond. And so when we think about,
oh yeah, my kids have an Alexa in their room. They have I shouldn't say her name too loud here. I will invoke.
Yeah, all your devices. Turn your devices off right now.
Exactly. Sorry, we're going to be talking a lot about the A word here, but yeah, my kids have one in their room, and I totally delegate the bedtime stories. Most nights. Sorry, I'm a horrible father, but yeah, Alexa, she reads bedtime stories to my kids, and my kids, it's like they know how to work it, right? So they'll go in, they'll turn the volume up, they'll ask for a bedtime story, they'll ask for this, they'll ask to change the colors of their lights and stuff because we got all the Internet of Things going on here, and it's fascinating because like this is native to them, right? Well, this is native to them.
And it's interesting you mentioned lights because I think that's where people kind of sometimes the imagination is limited. It's like, oh, I'm going to ask something and it's going to give me a verbal back.
Oh yeah, like Alexa.
Wait a minute, it could be.
Wait, watch this. Alexa, turn off the book light. Oh, come on, Alexa. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Exactly.
But see, but that brings us into some. Alexa, turn the book light back on. This is Sorry, got to highlight my book. It comes up to a point which you had covered in one of your articles, and I do want to take a look at your HBR article because it's a fascinating read. I already dropped it in the comments in the events, but I would believe I was reading something of yours that was essentially saying that voice needs to be more convenient than the alternatives in order for it to be adopted, and also it's not good thinking to think about voice only. There's this element of I call it mixed modality, but I think you called it something else.
Yeah, there's a right now, and it's so interesting when we think about like mobile first. Like we see parallels to other waves. Um,
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah, I remember the whole mobile first, right?
right,
And it's like I haven't heard that for a while, but yeah, so
because and that's exactly the point, because it got integrated,
uh,
because it's now normalized. It's not its own fringe thing. Like we go to a mobile conference. No, that's just in part of the ecosystem, and that's
right.
exactly where we see voice going too. It's not just a fringe, just a one device. It's all of your devices. And if you see these updates with Max, how Siri is being upgraded into everything, it's really, really interesting how these things move forward. But when we think about, in my field, we talk about voice first versus multimodal, which I think about as kind of integrated.
Mm-hmm.
But voice first is you ask one of your devices something, and it gives you a voice response back, kind of the input and the output as voice. So voice first is kind of that the experience is all about voice. The future, though, and what you're talking about exactly is like, wait a minute, does the output have to be voice? Could the response be that your light changes? Could the response be that a door opens? Right? These can be all kinds of different inputs and outputs. And I do some work with medical hardware as well, where we think about like when we're in different scenarios, could it be a gesture, right? Could it be computer vision? And could voice be the output that it gives you an answer about something? So there's a cacophony that could happen here, but really thinking about how multimodal means different modes. Is it a visual
Right.
thing? Is it a voice thing? Is it, sonic branding? Is it an earcon
Sonic
future?
branding, what's that? Tell me.
Yeah, well, you played that fantastic music at the beginning of all this.
Yeah, but it's actually
Um,
horrible branding because I've got like 8 different songs that I play.
it's
So, and I know if I really wanted to use sonic branding, which I'm assuming this is audio branding, then I should pick a song,
That's
right?
right. So when we think about like Netflix is usually the one I talk about when we think about sonic branding. Like you can hear when you see the visual of Netflix come up, and you hear the sounds of what that brand sounds like. And so sonic branding is a whole field. Actually,
I'm
one of
thinking of the Apple startup sound. The
exactly all these different
dong.
sounds.
Yeah.
And HBO, that
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
noise coming together, all these things. I have actually a friend who works on
We like
the
to watch
Olympics.
a lot of movies and TV here in Seattle on Netflix and
Okay.
HBO and
Right. And I don't work for any of these brands. I'm just
I
as an end user. But I think, I have colleagues who work in this space that make money making these sonic brands for the Olympics, for a
hmm.
brand. And so when you think about like my brand, like how do I sound as a human, and brands what they want to sound like what their brand is in an audio experience. So this is kind of the future of marketing, and a lot of brands are considering like, we need to really think of a cohesive narrative for what our brand is visually as well as in auditory spaces.
Yeah, that's interesting. And if I think about it here, from a marketing and a branding perspective, it seems to me like video, like multimedia video marketing has
Yeah.
caught on well before like audio only or audio voice has caught on. Am I off base? I guess not with podcasts and whatnot. But where's the overlap between video marketing and audio marketing?
Gosh, one, I think your underlying question is also like, there's one universal answer? And I
Yeah,
think this
and
is also part of
as
the
I was
problem.
formulating
No,
the
but
question, I was like,
this
yeah,
is
this is
I
the
get
wrong
this all the
question.
time. Like
Yeah,
everything has to be voice. Like a
yeah,
lot of my colleagues are like, add voice to it. I'm like, but is it a good user experience?
right,
Like, is that going to actually make sense?
right.
Like we, earlier mentioned Clubhouse or before this, but thinking about like, is it the right experience? I know when I work out, I just want to be listening to my podcast or just listening to my music. I don't need to see a visual necessarily. But sometimes when I'm asking one of my devices out here in the living room, like I want to see the map of where I'm going to go, right? Like it
Yeah.
really depends on the context is how I think about it. And so like, is it a good user experience? Does it match what I need and want? So when you talk about visuals and kind of, I think a lot about TikTok. I've been watching TikTok, the proliferation
Oh, dear
of
Lord. Dear Lord.
I downloaded it when, do you remember when they were like, you can't download TikTok anymore after Sunday, and the
Yeah, as soon as they
just
told me I
spiked?
couldn't, I downloaded it.
Exactly.
I'm like, screw you, authority figure. I do what I want. And yeah, so
They,
now I'm on TikTok, but I don't
yeah.
post. I
Well,
lurk.
and Gen Z is all over it, all
Yeah,
over it.
yeah.
And so just thinking about the music that's being reused in different videos and
Yep.
remixed, and all the images and the text. I'm actually, I know this startup who's going to pitch next week that is doing analytics on like sentiment and how people are responding to
Really?
TikTok videos, to like social media. How do we, if it's not just text, if it's not just likes, how are people responding to this really rich multimodal experience that people are crazy for? I mean, TikTok is blowing up. So really thinking about what the future looks like of all these different mediums as they expand.
Yeah. Speaking of TikTok, that's got me thinking here because it's frequent on TikTok. It's also it's less frequent on other social media platforms, but particularly where young people congregate, I see a lot of this use of synthetic voice. I see that all the time on TikTok where it just reads the captions or whatever. And, it sounds like shit. It sounds synthetic. And my question is, and yes, I know there's, people smarter than me working on making it sound more human and emotive and stuff like that. And I've actually demoed a few things like from Amazon that's pretty freaking good. But I'm always curious about, because we always talk, whether we're talking about globalization, localization, like what I do, or voice, like what you do, we always talk about like when will the machines reach human parity, right? When will the machines become good enough? Yeah, I see you smiling. I can assume what you're thinking. But a question that I like to ask is when will expectations that we have as a society, when will the expectations evolve to come down to the point where it's like, okay, I'm okay reading machine translation. I'm okay listening to synthetic voice. Because on the one hand, people are working very hard to bring us up the quality, but also like when I read MT today, machine translated text, I'm like, yeah, this is fine. This is good enough. Whereas if I read it 5 years ago, I'd be like, this is horrible. I hate the fact that there's MT. People should be localizing this. And of course, advancements have happened, but also my expectations have shifted. Have you seen that in voice?
Absolutely. Yep. This is something a lot of people want to train people to think is it's better or be normalized to. It's interesting you mentioned your kids know how to use it, right? They're potentially
It's a
power users.
fine line between training and indoctrination. I'll just
Well,
say,
exactly,
but yeah, I
exactly.
do want to indoctrinate my kids.
But I think most users have almost no tolerance for imperfection. And so even when we get automatic speech recognition up to 90%, 95% accuracy to what people are saying, people are like, it's not good enough.
Right.
We really have to have 100%. And I think that's both on the speech recognition side as well as the text to speech. You mentioned it sounds really glitchy, it sounds horrible. And that's what we can see with inputs and outputs is the output, we have the text. In theory, we have the answer, but how it's read out, if you are like, oh, that's glitchy and horrible to listen to, you may not use that experience at all. So there's a ton of different players in that space. You mentioned Amazon. NVIDIA has done some cool things in inner speech recently, but really making text-to-speech a really high quality is a very, very lucrative problem as people find really great solutions.
Lucrative problems are my favorite type of problems.
There's a lot of money in my space. People don't even know my space exists. Do you know that over 10,000 people work on the Amazon Alexa org just here in Seattle?
I believe it. I believe it.
I mean, the amount of money
I did
that
not
they're
know that
putting
to
into
answer
this.
your question. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and a lot of these teams are hiring teams with director level people, hiring headcounts of 5 to 10 to work on these conversational experiences.
Wow.
So
they're putting their money where their mouth is, for sure.
Well, and see, that's the thing. It used to be like, let's just try making some little tiny dinky bot. And then when they see this ROI, they're like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Walmart just acquired a voice tooling company.
I saw that. I read about that. Yeah. And that's interesting.
Botmark.
Walmart.
Yeah, congrats to Botmark. But yeah, Walmart's been hiring like crazy for their conversational AI teams. They put out a few demos of either what they've already built or what they're going to build. And just really thinking about kind of the e-commerce space, mentioning that ROI of like,
right.
If we can upsell you, if we can give you discounts. I mean, I hate grocery shopping. I would look forward to a world where it knows my order and I say, great, I look forward to it coming to my door.
Not that far away. not that far away, right? Because I can tell, she who shall not be named, I can tell her to add stuff to my shopping list, and it goes onto Amazon Shopping, and, I don't have it set up yet, but that's totally feasible, where I can do my grocery shopping without ever getting in my truck. The problem is I've got 3 kids at home, so grocery shopping to me is an excuse to get out of the house, and I'm perfectly fine with that. But speaking about companies investing in this, we talk about Walmart, talk about Amazon, talk about Mark Cuban. Because this was one of this is your thing. You wrote the title for this. And why are we talking about Mark Cuban here?
Well, a lot of people say, like, there's so much hype. Like, is voice even going to happen? And Mark Cuban was interviewed, and thank you for getting this quote. There's no future that doesn't have ambient computing or voice activation. None. And I think I love that ambient computing is added as well, because it kind of expands it. It's not just voice, right? It's this idea that our devices have an ecology that know about us and have a great user experience.
Yeah. The machines are evolving, right?
The machines are evolving, but they're also taking care of stuff that we don't want to do. Why did we get taught how to use our fingers like this? Like, there are lots of different options. And I think that goes back to the user experience. But so we're in 2021. What are we going to see in 5 to 10 years in these different spaces that we are totally going to be willing to pay for, or that are free? The price is built in to the different experiences.
Yeah.
So.
And
thank you to Mark for helping. I love talking about that, because I think there's a investment in this space. Is it nascent? Is it already saturated? Where are we at?
Yeah, that totally. I forgot to play this as my intro, but I totally have this clip here, which means, whoops, no, wrong button, Tucker, wrong button. Holy moly! Scene 2, bam! All my all my Star Trek friends out here.
Please.
Whoops.
Computer. Hello, computer.
Just use the keyboard.
The keyboard. How quaint.
How quaint. Right? Is that how we're all going to be thinking about keyboards and old school interfaces? I'm guessing the answer to that question is no, because what I'm hearing from you is voice is not replacing anything. Voice is increasing the richness of the overall user experience where appropriate, and that's where we're at right now. Correct?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I see advances in like, if you told me I never have to type another email, I'd be thrilled with that plan. Like, there's no reason I need to be doing that as far as I'm concerned. And so I don't know if you've noticed, but in Google Docs, you can do what's called voice typing. You can enable this in Chrome. And so, like, I sometimes speak out paragraphs, and of course have to edit them, proper nouns and names and so forth. But I look forward to that being integrated into Gmail. Right. And so when we are able to, and it's again about the user experience, is it better? Some people, they write in different ways. For me, I dictate almost all my texts.
Well,
right?
it's time and place. You know what's funny is I never use text to speech when composing stuff, except when I'm doing video editing in Adobe Rush on my iPad. Like, that's a very specific use case. But I found, like, using Adobe Rush, the program Adobe Rush, on my iPad, it's a pain in the ass to use the keyboard on the iPad. And it's easier just to speak it. So there's a little microphone button, and I can just speak one sentence, and it's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I thought, or people tease me in my life about, like, oh, are people using your voice technology, blah, blah, blah. But pre-pandemic, I saw people at the airport using it all the time in public spaces. I was like, if we've gotten to the point where people have normalized it in public spaces to be speaking to their devices openly, like, we're in a totally different space. But it's still a bit awkward sometimes when I'm speaking to my devices when people come to visit. It's like, oh, I'm speaking to the machine right now.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing is, like, there's definitely a time and place when you can't be talking. Like, you can't be talking to your Apple Watch when you're in a business meeting, right?
Exactly. And this is why the voice first may not work. It's like, this is not appropriate, or I need to be quiet at this juncture, right? I would prefer to text it, or I prefer to click a button.
Yep.
Right? So it really, I think a lot about inputs and outputs.
Right. Well, let's I do want to bring up your article over here about, let me pull it up, ma'am, voice recognition still has significant race and gender biases. And I understand in here that, there's a bunch of great statistics in here for those of you that are interested, but voice recognition is 12% more effective for male voices than female voices. There's other statistics in here, and I'm not going to scroll through and make everybody do. Oh, I'll scroll a
Will you
little
go
bit.
just to the scorecard? Because I think that's what people really.
There's a
lot
scorecard.
of
Yes.
My friends and family members are like, please, I don't want to read this. Is it consumable to anyone else, Joan?
The
But I think-
ACD, this one right here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think when people think about 12%, is that a lot? These changes, but when you see the breakdown of I literally have a friend named Josh. For him it might work at an A-. For me, it could work at a C+.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. For the same paragraph, this is for native speakers of English. Like when we talk about different accents and dialects, we got down here Indian English, Scottish English. When we think about those breakdowns and just the title is really, really descriptive, significant race and gender biases.
I'm sure you've seen the YouTube video with the Scots trying to operate the elevator. You know what I'm talking about, right?
Exactly. Oh yeah. Well, and even I think I love talking at dinner parties and the husband says, yes, it works for me. I love turning the devices on. And the wife says, yeah, it never understands me. Right. I literally, see this play out in real life. And I think that's a, slightly comical example. But in my article, I also talk about, voice technology and conversational AI are being integrated into job decisions for hiring, for immigration, for surveillance tools. And it's like, wait a minute, the implications of those biases.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I like that anyways, even if the algorithm's not biased, listening to all of us.
Right. And I think that's one of the things as I started digging into the research of why, let's fix this. Again, there's a huge amount of money in these things performing well. What is the problem here? It's partially the hardware. It's partially the software. It's a huge percent about the data sets. In my article, I talk about a lot of things are based on actually the TED repertoire, that whole data set of, TED Talks, which are mostly white men. And so when we are trying to map on female voices to a data set of 70% white men, shocker, it's not going to perform well. Right. This is, I consult with lots of companies who are, why does our system perform at a D? Well, you're using basic default ASR and you who is your, end user? Oh, it's a Filipino woman. It seems really, really obvious. And there are a lot of different teams working on this. And especially as your data set gets bigger, your minority data set might be smaller, early adopters. There are lots of different pieces to this puzzle. But the more research I did into this, the more I realized that it's actually not necessarily, and it's not necessarily intentional. I have a ton of friends in this space.
No one at Amazon's rubbing their hands together, being like, how do we exclude large groups of people around the world? That's not happening.
They pay a lot of money to make it more inclusive. I hope to continue to convey that. I don't think anyone's trying to be malicious. Right. I really don't see that being the case. But what I do see is a real great potential for improvement. And where there's potential, right? But it's also what I see, and this goes back to women and voices, it's who's at that table that decides what the benchmark is for what gets deployed, right? Those 3 to 5 people typically who say, okay, it's good enough, we're going to ship. Yep. And when, it's 3 to 5 people, who are those people? Does it work on them? Are they dog fooding it themselves? And that's where I'm like, women and people of color need to be at the table because they wouldn't have deployed it if it only works at a D for the person using it who built it. Yeah. And so that's why I'm like, we got to work on pipelines. And most importantly, we got to work on retention I know it's early in the morning to talk about, white supremacy and patriarchy, but it's really about, do people feel included? Do they feel like this is a workplace they want to be at? People are so passionate about my field, right? They're coming in droves. And do they want to stay? Is this a culture where they feel that they can be their authentic selves, that they, we have good working conditions? Tech can grow in a lot of ways for that. So having community to say, hey, you're not alone. Let's build companies together. Why do we need to, why couldn't we be a founder is something that Women in Voice has been working on a lot this year and really amplifying female founders, because statistically, female founders hire more diverse executive teams and more diverse teams in general. And so, yeah, we have, if you go to one of your tabs about our pitch events.
Pitch events, yeah. I was going to say, let's get
because
over
next
there because you're
week,
already taking us that direction.
listen,
So,
I mean, why not? Because I think I spoke on a podcast a few months ago, and the presenter was like, "Are there even female founders in voice?" I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
What?
Like there are so many. We have to turn people down. So this is a pitch event, actually, sponsored by Amazon Alexa Startups, which obviously we have a common interest in voice companies, but also Symbol AI that just raised a Series A, a startup that cares a lot about the voice ecosystem. But so we are doing, this is the finale of the year, elevator pitch events. We've got 5 founders pitching on voice and conversational AI companies, all in different verticals. They're really, really cool. We have investors that come that find it very, very interesting. This is the social media one I was talking about earlier that does TikTok performance and kind of analytics on multimodal experiences. You scroll down a little bit. I mean, please come. It's open to the public, and these are educational. This is so many of these things happen behind closed doors at VCs.
Point of clarification. Because women in voice, like we have an organization, Women in Localization, here in our industry, and they don't care. They don't care what anatomy you have when you show up or how you identify, right? But I did notice, like, what is for women? What is reserved for women in Women in Voice, or is everything open to everybody?
Almost I would say 99% of our events are for women and allies. So, I mean, it's really interesting. I think about, and this is more and more, like Women in Voice for everyone by women. Like most of our content is consumed by a 60 to 40% ratio of what's tagged as women to men.
Got it.
But
as opposed to
these,
and is there research in the industry, like one thing about our industry is that we're in localization women are pretty well represented, right?
Cool.
It's actually a really cool space because women, a lot of companies get started from translators, and translator is a very female dominant profession itself. So, like, lots of good representation in here. In the voice space, what does it look like as far as representation? Is there data available?
Those stats. No, I haven't. But I do get pinged by very senior people who are looking at their finalist candidates for roles, and they go, "Uh-oh, they're all men." Uh-oh, Joan, can you save me? And we actually have a jobs board today, so you can work on that. But yeah, check out the jobs board.
Jobs board right here,
it's
guys.
Happen. Yeah, Providence is hiring. There's all kinds of rules, and I think
filtering going on here. This is fancy. I like this.
Yeah, but there's so many companies hiring, and I think, as you mentioned, also kind of what roles are there. Hopefully, you can see it from here. They're designers, they're engineers, product. You need a multifaceted team to build these experiences, right? So, as mentioned, who's at that table of 3 to 5 or more people who are building these things? So, and these are all companies across the world. I mean, Women in Voice is international by design, and we really lean into that. And especially during COVID, why couldn't you hire the right person wherever they live?
Right.
Yeah.
And so, talking about keeping on the general concept of inclusivity, I think it's one thing to look at, like, okay, we need more women, we need more BIPOC, we need more minority voices, literally, in the industry, but also, like, voice already, regardless of how ready it is or not, I think there's an argument to be made that voice is doing a lot to increase accessibility because there's a lot of people around the world that don't read. Right?
Absolutely.
So this is, and probably a big chunk of those folks that aren't reading aren't in a position where they have high-speed internet and an Alexa device. But the future is bright in that area where we can put technology and other capabilities in the hands of people that typically wouldn't have access to that because they don't know how to type, they don't know how to use a mouse or fancy trackball or anything. They can just talk to their computer. It's like in Star Trek.
That's right. Well, and I think when we think about accessibility, it can be so many different ways, right? My friend Kathy Pearl, she talks about, like, if you have groceries in your arms, you may not be able to touch a device. My dad has huge hands, and he struggles to use so many different devices because the buttons are so small. Right? Like when we talk about literacy, there's a company that pitched recently at the founder events called Learning Matters, where they work in India at schools, many schools, and literacy levels are really, really low. But people can be quizzed. There can be a lot of gamified education through voice technology. So we're also seeing at Women in Voice a ton of pings from Nigeria recently. We hope to launch some African chapters soon. But people who are really excited about, is this going to come out in my languages? You know, how I speak with the devices that we have on hand, right? Because we already have a huge install base. If they already have devices in their hands and in their houses, you know, how do we, make technology ready for those spaces? So, there's so many different markets and there are different demographics of people who will use this technology in different ways. And accessibility, I think, is so cool because frequently when we make products better for different demographics, it's better for everybody. Right. You know, we talk about that game that they changed the colors for accessibility with contrast or something. Yep. And everyone preferred the one that was modified. Really? So yeah, I forget the name of the game. I'm not a gamer myself, but really accessibility, I think, is a huge part of this puzzle. And even people with disordered speech, there's tons of automatic speech recognition being designed for them and how we get better at, all sides of this coin.
And how is this affecting for those? I mean, we've talked a lot about things that have an effect on people in tech, essentially voice technology. What effect is this having on the voiceover market? Which has, there's a ton of interesting things happening with the voiceover market, particularly after the remote world of 2020, right? People had to figure out, I think my perspective on like the voiceover market, the multilingual voiceover market, particularly because that's the space that we watch over here at NIMSY. And if you want actual knowledge, go talk to Dr. Belen or Sarah Hickey or Gabriel or someone on my team who actually does the research. But my perspective reading their reports is that like two things have happened. It's those two things that I was talking about earlier, where on the one hand, the quality has improved and it continues to improve. It's never going to stop improving. But on the other hand, expectations have seriously been lowered. And we've seen studios that historically will not send a request to a remote voiceover artist or someone with their home studio. They prefer everybody to come into the studio and have a nice controlled environment. Well, last year they had to say, well, we're either getting home studios or nothing. So I think it's kind of been an eye opener, and people have realized, yeah, this is good enough. Like we can do it this way. What have you noticed about the market for voiceover talent, though?
Yeah, voiceover, it's so interesting because a lot of people don't know is that part of the, voice and conversational AI space? And I'm like, of course, if it's text to speech, if it's voice actors, I've worked at Nuance previously and we worked very, very closely with voice actors. I think it's interesting you mentioned the home studios, but just the jobs. And we talked about sonic branding and kind of the market and what companies want to sound like, right? What does the bank sound like on their phone experience? A lot of people get paid very, very well for this space. A lot of people don't get paid well for this space. And I think the inequities and payment for voice actors is very important. I don't know if you saw that TikTok lawsuit about the woman who her voice was being used everywhere but not compensated. She got compensated out of court, I'll tell you that.
That was TikTok?
That was TikTok.
I remember there was some hubbub about like the Siri lady or something years and years ago.
It was an incubated idea, right? They did not know how big Siri was going to be on devices.
Well, you can tell because it wasn't really a finished product when it was released. I mean, that's just my opinion. But
her name is Susan Bennett.
Yeah, okay.
She was compensated as a contractor.
Yeah.
Because they were trying out different
voices.
They defaulted to a male voice, and then people hated it, and they switched to a female voice.
Why would they default to a male? Okay, never mind.
I'm not on the Apple team. Don't ask me.
Okay. Apple team, call me. We'll have you on the show to talk about it.
Yeah.
They're not going to call me.
Probably not. They were quite secretive. But really thinking about, voice actors and how naturalistic it sounds. Like people heard her speak in like the grocery store. Of course, Susan Bennett gets stopped everywhere. They're like, your voice sounds familiar. Something is amiss. But really thinking about voice actors, I think there are tons of jobs in this space. I see tons of people doing it as a side hustle, right? Like I know a voice actor who specializes in medical experiences because she's really, really savvy at speaking those super long prescription names. So I think there's a lot of cool space. I don't know if you've seen Well Said Labs. That's a startup out of Seattle that's working on really sophisticated text-to-speech that partners with voice actors. They just, I think, raised their Series A. It's out of the Allen Institute. But really thinking about how can we make really excellent experiences as well. Yeah, the voice actor. I'll admit I don't know as much about the voice actor. Yeah, Well Said Labs, exactly. And so they're kind of a suite because it can be very, very expensive to hire someone to speak all the different answers, the outputs you have for your experience, and then suddenly you change a product name. Do you have to re-record, like all these different pieces? So I'd strongly recommend people to listen to this. And just see the quality of the work. But I think there's also a lot of people get scared, deep fakes. What is the future of this type of technology when we push it even further?
I think a lot of people our age and up get scared about deep fakes. So once again, going back to like the kids, it's like if you're raised with it, it's normal. And I don't see amongst the younger generations, I don't see a lot of concern for such things. They're just like, that's kind of the way it is. Either that, or what I'm also seeing is, whereas like the millennial generation kind of turned into shameless self-promoters, we did, right? We're the Instagram era, and now Instagram's not cool. But what is cool is keeping a private profile. Like, have you come across that? Like people not even having a profile out there for things?
I'm not on Instagram.
Good on you. Good on you. That's taking the conversation away. It shouldn't go anywhere.
No. But I think you're right about kind of what is public, what is private. How we, use toggles on our devices is a really important discussion point, right? And the changes that Apple has made to, how do we track people? The do not disturb. I don't know if I have a ton of Mac devices, but just kind of what we share with the outside world about our experiences, and do we trust our devices as a whole, part of the field. So it's interesting. I agree with you. Different age demographics and different demographics see this technology in so many ways. I mean, Dutch Telecom, if you talk about different privacy things, they have doubled down in no one trusts Google and Amazon here in Europe. We see a huge space in this market, and we're going to go for it with privacy first stuff. They spent a huge amount of money on their platform. Go Dutch Telecom. I spoke at their Mobile World Congress recently, but really thinking about how they can make better user experiences for banking, for different verticals. How can we expand this technology? So I think, and it's right, it's really interesting to see, first to market, and then people who see gaps in that market and go for those different pieces of the puzzle, right? And how Alibaba and companies do it in China. I mean, it's so cool. Like they do a different persona for different IoT in your kitchen. So your fridge has a different personality and voice from your toaster. They have different names.
As they should. My toaster's a little bitch, and I like my fridge.
But this is exactly the kind of persona. You have feelings about your devices, and what do they sound like? How can you interact with them? So even if the back end, the computing might be the exact same, but how we listen to it or how we interact with it may be different.
Yeah, I'm just like thinking what skins, I guess that's not the right word. What voices, if I could, what voices would I change Alexa to, like in different rooms of my house? And I'm thinking like the garage definitely has to be different than the bedroom. You know what I'm saying? It's like I want like Larry the Cable Guy or somebody in the garage.
Well, there are more and more of these like personalized voices, like Reese Witherspoon's voice was recently used for different things.
I had Samuel L. Jackson on my Waze, my navigation thing at one point.
Why
I think
not?
I had Samuel L. Jackson. That was interesting. But speaking of the different countries, different languages, and different stuff, I think we would be remiss not to give a shout out to Mr. Herr Drexel, who made introductions to us. This is how I got to know.
That's right. He
Joan.
pinged me and he's like, "You gotta send her to Tucker."
Yeah, and that was cool. It's like, all right, cool. I'll reach out. I'm shameless, so that's how Joan and I started talking. But quick plug for the Troublesome Terps podcast, because this is Alex Drexel. This is Alexander Drexel, Jonathan Downey, Alexander Gansmeyer, and Zara Hickey, who is actually NIMSY's VP of research here. But quick plug is like on Monday, there's going to be a live podcast happening with the Troublesome Terps, who are pulling in a bunch of different influencers and people from all over the industry, the localization industry and interpreting industry specifically, that have their own podcast. And it's going to be a nice little 2-hour event. I will be making an appearance there. But yeah, I just wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Drexel for making those introductions. I also want to, how are we doing on time? Yeah, let's go over here. I wanted to talk about the Gratitude Gala because I saw this on your website when I was poking around, and it caught my attention because we have a conference here called Gala, Gala Localization Conference. So this caught my attention. Tell me about this.
Yeah, well, we wanted to throw a gala. It's the end of the year.
Oh, who doesn't want to throw
together.
a gala? Come on, right?
But this year we started the year for Women's Month talking about resilience. I don't think anyone needs to be convinced that we don't need resilience this time.
Yeah, right.
And I think, by December, really thinking about gratitude and being grateful for so many different things in our lives. There's so many hardships going on right now to really come together. So this event is free to the public. If you scroll down, I think we've got our sponsors, or at least some of our sponsors below, but we've got different speakers from different tech companies. There'll be more announced soon, but we're going to be doing kind of an interactive rooms. I believe there are going to be tables, like literal tables, and you can go talk to people and networking. Because I've heard people are done with Zooms. People don't, how do we connect? How do we talk about gratitude together? And frankly, recruiters, how do you talk to people in when we can't go to conferences and meet for coffee on the side? How do we connect with people as people? So we're going to have some phenomenal speakers. I think it'll be pretty low key and really fun. Some great networking. Thank you to our sponsors. I think Google and Symbol are both sponsors.
Hey Google and Symbol.ai.
Yeah, Google Assistant. Yeah, we'll be announcing, I think, a few more in the next few weeks. But I think, I have fun, playful events at the end of the year here in December coming up real soon. So come check out the gala. And hopefully in the future, these are hybrid. These are in person. I'm looking forward to my fancy swag.
Right. You got to get the swag. The swag.
Oh my gosh.
The swag is why I go to conferences. But yeah, shout out Kesha Williams, training architect over at AWS, cloud guru. Serbi Ratore, CEO and co-founder of Symbol.ai, is going to be speaking. Kathy Pearl, design manager on Google Assistants at Google. Good lineup.
She's the one that wrote the book. Oh, yeah. And 2 of those are board members of ours as well.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh my gosh, our board.
Tell me about your board. Tell me about your board because it is it's.
You got to go to the bout, I think, because that's the jobs board. I know we got the semantic ambiguity going on there. Just one up, I think, board and advisors. Yeah,
I can do this. I can
It's
navigate.
too long a search menu.
I've got too many buttons here.
So Women in Voice is indeed a 501c3, which means that we have a board of directors that make sure we're going in the right directions. We had a call for new board members, a refresh in August. We had so many applications. I was horrified to turn people down, frankly. There's just so many talented people who want to join us. So these are some outgoing folks who donated their time. But I think if we scroll down, or perhaps it's on the global team page, here are the duties. All right.
I think it is on the global team page because I was looking at it earlier.
Thank you. The global team, but our board of directors, Googlers, Amazonians, we've got people from companies all around the world. Yeah, here.
Romina Pankoki, Vux design lead at Vixen Lab, or VUX. I was like, who is Vux? I thought it was a brand name.
Voice user experience.
Yeah. I get it now.
And we've got investors, we've got ethicists. I mean, I am humbled to be in rooms with these people.
Right.
To have all the
you ever find yourself just being like, what? Like, why am I in this room with these people? How did this happen?
People. I absolutely, I created Women in Voice mostly by accident. My team does not like me talking about this. I didn't know what it was going to be. I was like, I have to do something. That's really the mandate I had on my shoulder. And I also felt like, why me? At the time, I felt really young and new to the space. After, getting your PhD in this space, but, really, I saw the gap and the interest is clearly there, and being in a room with all these senior women, and I'm one of the youngest right now, but just being in awe of people who've been working in this field for decades and
Yeah.
kind of how we all want to push our field forward. So it's is really heartwarming and also really intimidating to be like, damn, these people are ambitious. Like, let's do it.
It
Let's
is.
go.
I'm just looking at this. Renee Cummings, Leslie Garcia Maya, Rise Together, Jagruti Bika, Soapbox Labs, Nayam Bushnell,
Mm-hmm.
Rebecca Evanho. I'm just reading the phone book at this point. Jesus. Um,
And I had to turn people down. This is
I can
these are the
imagine.
ones we voted on. So we did do a call for advisors. I think it closed, but I can probably sneak you in if people are interested in applying to different committees. But we plan to be around for a long time. So if you're interested in joining the board of the future, no sweat. But I think it's really interesting to have lots of, surprise, surprise, voices at the table. Right? We've got investors, we've got people in tech, we've got ethicists, we've got people really thinking about different perspectives of our ecosystem. We've got authors. I don't know if you know Soapbox Labs, but it's automatic speech recognition for kids' voices.
Yeah, I was reading a little bit about them.
Really cool company.
I'm pretty sure I find that not creepy. I'm pretty sure I find that
Their
interesting.
privacy. I mean, they're based in Ireland,
I
so
know. Yeah.
I wouldn't be worried about them. But really thinking about when we all come to the table together and really think about how we want to, goals we want to pursue, women in voice. My team is so damn ambitious. It's mostly, what can we tackle in the next 6 to 12 months?
Right.
What can we think about the next, 5-year strategic planning? So, I really planned for life in R&D, and I am upskilling as a CEO real quick, fast as I can, to make sure that we really serve our mission, right? And we really, really serve our community in the way we want to. So, and people are joining and learning about us all the time. I get messages regularly. Holy moly! I just found out about Women in Voice. Can we make a chapter here? Can we make a chapter there?
Yeah, I was gonna say, talk to us about. So I'm watching this. I'm a woman in voice. No, I am a woman who wants to get into voice, right? Or
Sure.
perhaps looking to expand my network, start my career, or maybe just find out a little bit more about what this whole industry is all about. What are my next steps? I finished listening to this podcast, and then I ...
Yeah, I would sign up for tons of our free events. You can become a member for free. We've got tiers from $0 to $100. I would strongly recommend going to events, seeing if there's a chapter near you. People love going to events in their language, right? But also a lot of our events right now are in English and remote. So, check out if you're based in Italy, great. Go to the Women in Voice Italian events. I'm going to connect with people there. Our chapters are all set up by roughly 3 to 5 senior women in a location, or we have affinity groups as well. So if you go to our website, you check out your region, you connect with some of those people. But really, I think our events are really where the magic happens, where people are like, whoa, have you seen her work? Like, this is so cool. Or I didn't know about this part of the field. I'm really interested in this. We've got books. We did a summit this past July, and we'll do one in April. We haven't quite announced it, but we're doing our summit at April 2022, but just the talent from all around the world.
That's
It's a really thriving community. So if you're interested, come join. As mentioned, there are tons of jobs in this field. So if that's something you want to upskill in or pivot, we're ready. Come join.
It's awesome. I love it. Well, Dr. Joan, we're looking about 5 minutes here, so let's hit the magic music button to see which branded song is going to play us out here. Hey, YouTube, I have bought the licenses for these. Stop bugging me about it with copyright stuff. Dr. Joan, it was great to have you here. Let me I'm gonna give this a shot. We do a section here at the end called Tux Takeaways. I know, super original branding, but see if I can summarize what we talked about here today. So let's look at what I got for number 1 here. Oh, voice recognition is not equal across demographics. Representation is needed. So what I mean by this, where's my camera? There it is. What I mean by this is, after talking to Dr. Joan, after reading her HBR article, which is linked in the comments section for the LinkedIn event, go check that out. Frankly, we need more training, we need more representation in voice, because if voice recognition doesn't recognize everybody, then it is not providing equal access. Frankly, it's taking away customers, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's say you don't give a shit about the world, right? Hypothetically, let's say you don't give a shit about making the world a better place, right? Just forget about it. Do you like money? You like money? Well, people besides, people that don't look like me also have money. So next, Women in Voice has a lot of free events. Sign up. Go to an event in your language. See what it's all about. I highly recommend this. Go check it out. Poor Joan here. Even when I found out about her, I sent her like 5 different referrals. I'm like, Joan, I just met you, but you need to meet this person, this person, this person, right? So even if she doesn't get back to you right away, I'm sure, and I don't want to put words in your mouth here, Joan, but I'm sure that's okay. You encourage people to reach out.
Absolutely. I can't say that it'll be right away, but you're welcome to.
And lastly, on Tux Takeaways here, voice it's not going to replace UI. Perhaps it's not going to be a replacement. You're still going to have to type. We're still going to have to swipe, but it's going to become an integral part. If you don't believe me, then believe Mark Cuban. He seems like he knows what he's talking about, and he does not foresee a future. Do I still have that? Yes, I do. He does not foresee a future where voice isn't included in that. So if you're not going to believe me, then you can believe Mark Cuban here. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I think we're about out of time here today. So if you enjoyed the NIMSY Live experience, then please join us next time on... do I have an upcoming slide today? Join us next time. Nope, that's this. That's what we're doing here. But I will tell you what we are doing next time because I'm actually super excited about it. Tomorrow we're doing something new. It's going to be the very first NIMSY Let's Play, which is we're going to play together, and this is what we're going to be playing here. I got my cards here. We're going to be playing card games. This is a card game called Fruit Vendor. And it is a card game developed by the folks down at the Middlebury Institute of International Studies in Monterey in the TRLM program there, led by...
I know some of those folks.
You know some of those folks? Yeah, everybody knows some of those folks. And there are going to be a bunch coming tomorrow because I spammed the shit out of the invite button. And I invited like every Miss alumni to this Let's Play. But we're just going to sit down. We're going to play. I got my rush order of cards delivered yesterday. We're going to sit down. We're going to play some Fruit Vendor. And we're going to talk about vendor management in the localization space. So that will be fun. And of course, the following week, next week, we're hosting Jonas Reiberg from Pactera Edge. We're going to be talking about creating memorable experiences and using AI to do so for all of your global customers. So once again, my name is Tucker Johnson. I am host of NIMSY Live, and it has been my pleasure to join you all today. I appreciate very much our guest, Dr. Joan Palmiter Bajorek, today for making time out of her busy schedule. I very much appreciate all of you guys that are joining in comments. I appreciate everybody who's helping NIMSY with our industry research every single day. We publish market research and do consulting for the language services industry, and that certainly couldn't happen without all of you guys that are talking to my team and helping us out with that. So I very much appreciate that. And with that, we're going to see you next time. Come play some Fruit Vendor tomorrow with us. Ciao. Say bye.
Ciao.
Just want the real deal. Just want the real stuff. Honey. Yeah. You feel like you're the worst. Pretend like you're the best. You're cool, but you see, in the end, my love won't stand the test. No. Get into a car. Will you give what you deserve? My time not to talk. You see, I'm only going for the best. The only time you open up is when we're in bed. I'm not misunderstandable when I say it's the best time I ever had. Oh yeah, but you gotta keep on moving, gotta give me some more. Cool it down, boy. I just want a real, just want a real deal, just want a real stuff, honey. I just want a real, just want a real deal, just want a real stuff, honey. Give me more, give me more, give me more, give me more. I just want a real, just want a real, just want a real stuff, honey. I just want a real, just want a real.
That's funny. You know you're an influencer when people you don't know are making introductions to other people that you don't know to go on podcasts.
Well, I really appreciate that. That's support. Yeah, no, it's, I think think people like working with me, so I think I get a good rep for we'd like to hang out with Joan. Ooh, LPs and enterprises. Wait, oh,